Hey everybody, this is Alreza from Zafre, and today we're going to be building this scroll animation right here where the text is going to fade in and it's going to grow, and we're going to have another one where the text rotates as the user scrolls through the content. So we're going to be creating these two animations. We're going to be creating the first one with rotation, and then we're going to be talking about how with some small modifications you can create a second one where the text grows and pops in. So here we're gonna have a section and a container, pretty basic stuff, not much to talk about. And we're gonna have a wrapper that's gonna be holding our effects and our contents. So just to clarify here, we're not gonna be using any libraries or apps or anything like that. It's just gonna be made with purely using the Webflow basic options that it gives us. So we're going to start by creating a div with a class of text wrapper, and we're going to be creating another div inside of it, and this one's going to be called text line. So just follow along for now. I'm going to explaining later on what each of these are for. We're going to create another div. This time it's going to be called text holder. And another one, finally, it's just going to be text block. Now here instead of this text block, we're going to be having the actual letters that we're going to be animating using our interactions later on. But first we need to actually make sure that our text line is going to have a flex of center so that our letter is actually aligned properly and it's going to be on the center. And then we're going to move on and we're going to be adding our letter. In this case, we're just going to be adding a simple A. And it's going to be inside of our text holder. And we're going to give our letter a class of text. Now all of our letters are going to have that same class. In order to give a general styling to all of our letters, we're going to be giving to our text wrapper, although you can do the same thing to our text letter, but in this case I'm just going to be doing it on the text wrapper element. And I'm going to be giving font size of 10 EM, changing the font type and changing the color as well, so it can look like this. And we're just going to duplicate this so that we can have access to more letters. We're going to do this a couple of times, and we do have to take into consideration how many letters we have, because it's going to change how we should structure our interaction. So just keep in mind for now that we're going to be working with 5 letters right here. And just for sake of making it look a little bit better, we're going to be changing these letters from A to just be A, B, C, D, E. So they look a little bit different. Now we're going to be giving each of these an individual class, not so we can style them, but so that we can later on reference them using our interaction. Because if they are going to have the same if they're all going to have the same class, it's going to apply the same effect at the same time, but we don't want that. We want it so that the first letter on the left is going to appear first, and then the second one, then the third one, then the fourth one, and so on till we get to the end of the line. So in order to do that, we're going to be using some classes. Now we're going to move on to the interactions, and this is where the magic happens. This is where the main bulk of this video is going to be about. We're going to be using the while scrolling into view section, and we're going to play and scroll animation. And now we're going to be adding a brand new animation, and we're going to give it a name. You can give it whatever you want. We're just going to give it a simple name of text animation. And now we're going to be able to start animating our letters. So then, here we have it. This 0 is going to basically tell us where the animation is going to start, and the 100 is going to be when the animation ends and the user has scrolled through this section or element. So now you have one thing you have to keep in mind is that I talked about earlier how we have 5 elements, and we basically wanted to make it so that when the user is scrolling in from the first part, as soon as the element becomes visible, which is going to be at 0 all the way to 50% of it, our first letter, which is A in this case, should start appearing. So in order to do that, we're going to have it where A is going to have its first initial state set at 0, and then it's going to have its final state set at 50%. And we're going to do the same thing for B. However, for B it's going to be on 20%, and so it's going to be on 10% and 60%. So I'm going to show you what that's going to look like. We're going to set to 0 for A, and on 50% we're going to change its opacity to 100 and change its rotate to 0, rotate X to 0, and change the opacity to 100. This makes it so that by the time that user has scrolled through 50% of the way, they're going to be able to see the A, and the A is going to rotate from its initial state where it's going to be, basically at invisible, and it's going to be rotated to by minus 90 degrees. Then it's going to rotate to its final state. And this is where our classes come in that I was talking about earlier. Now, if we apply this, being applied to the text T2 combo class, not just text. So now we can give this one on 10%, and we're going to give it 0% for the opacity, and then finally we're going to be giving it a rotation of 0% for X and 100% for the opacity, so that the B letter will also become visible. Like so. We're also going to be giving it a timing function of ease, so that it doesn't immediately go from the first state to the second state, and it's going to be more smoother, and it's going to have a better transition. So we're going to just keep repeating this stuff, make sure that you're using the correct percentages here. If we were, for example, using let's say 10 letters instead of 5, we should have been adjusting them in each 5%. So for example, our first state would be at 0 and 50, but our second one, B should be at 5% and 55%, and then C should be at 10% and 60%, and so on. So you're also going to be adding our easing function to each one of them, so to make sure they're all going to work properly. And we're just going to keep repeating this for the C letter as well. This time it's going to be 70%. And keep in mind, it is being applied to the combo class, not just the class itself. Now we can give it opacity of 100% so it actually becomes visible. Of course, we have to make sure that it is easy again. And now we're just going to keep on repeating these same steps for letter D and E. By the time we get to the end of it, all of our elements should have their properties set straight in our interaction. So here we are at the end. Now we've done it for 80%, 90% as well, and of course 30 and 40%. You can see right here. So this way, if we so you can see, if we're going up, we're scrolling upward, the elements are going to become invisible again, just like how they were in their initial states. You can see it's going back to being invisible. But if we scroll down, it's going to become visible. Now, in order to make sure that our effects actually, going to look 3D, we're going to be applying some perspective on them. We're going to be applying a children perspective on our text line element. I'm going to be giving this distance of 1000 pixels, and we're going to be applying something similar to our text holder element, but this time it's going to be 400 pixels and 50% on the left and 0 on top. Now it's going to look a lot more 3D like. It's going to give it an illusion of actually being 3D, even though in reality it is still using 2D axis, but it's going to look a lot more 3D like. So just like that, it's going to be applying to all of our elements, and there's going to be a little bit of a delay because, for example, one of them applies at 0%, one of them applies at 10%, and then 50 and 60 and so on. Yeah, we talked about the percentages before and how you can set them. Now we're gonna skip ahead to the part where we have 10 elements, just because I wanted to show you what's gonna look like with more letters. So if you check the interaction here, we can see that now this time it's being set at 5%, 10%, 15%, and so on. And if we're to double it again, it will be set at every 2% or every 3%. I guess 2% will make more sense. You just keep dividing it by the amount of letters that you have in each line. So in this case, it's going to be 10, and now we can see that it is working properly. And now all we have to do is just duplicate this, and notice how if we duplicate it, the ones that are lower are going to start animating after our current one, because they're going to be entering the viewport later on. That means their animation is going to start later on. There's going to be a bit of delay, and if we add some margin or padding there, it will make it so that the animation starts being applied to them even later. So we don't have to do anything special for that, or adding any kind of delay or creating a separate animation. All you have to do is just make sure that the ones that you want to be animated later on are lower in the viewport than your previous one or the first one. It's just as simple. Now we're going to be creating another animation that I talked about at the start of the video. This time it's going to be making sure that our letters zoom in instead of rotating. So we're going to be setting their move Z index for -300 pixels, and we're going to be making them go from -300 to 0 pixels. This time it's going to make sure that they seem very small, and as we're scrolling that, they're going to go back to their original size. So we can see like that V right there, it looked much smaller and then it starts growing. And you can play around with these values so that you can make it look however you want. And here we have the final project where we have both of the effects being applied properly. So that's it for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.